Welcome to Panelism, the podcast where we talk about the comics and graphic novels worth having on your shelf, and sometimes more, which we'll get to in a minute. I am Taylor Trask.
I'm Todd A.
And I'm way too excited and enthusiastic.
It's okay, man. I've had many cups of coffee today.
I was just realizing, I was like, that was very sort of, I don't know, car salesman-y. I was like, I didn't mean that to be the case.
It's good. It helps me modulate my energy. I didn't know if I was going to come in too hot or not. So
sometimes you do. You're like, whoa. It's like flying into Midway Airport in Chicago, where it's just like you're coming in, we're dropping, and here we go. So. Oh
man, speaking of that, you just flew into San Diego recently, which is one of the top 10 most dangerous landing airports or something like that.
I heard this, and then as we were coming in, it just seemed perfectly normal. So I didn't know, maybe we came in on this like the one runway that was fine. Everybody told me this though. Yeah, I was in San Diego, and then I was just in South Dakota, and I think I got to both exactly at the right time because California literally, like the day after we got back, started its uptick back into severe COVID territory.
God, they're
South Dakota's about to.
I mean, we're seeing it all over the country, right? Like nobody is getting this shit straight, and it's insane because it's like just wear a mask and socially distance yourself
and wash your hands,
and you'll cut transmission.
Yeah.
And there's all these fools out there thinking that the mask is some ridiculous like diktat that they don't want to obey. And what's happening in Southern California is that there's like the rates start going up. Yep. Orange County, where I am, shut the beaches down for July, like before the July 4th weekend. So and LA, of course, shut everything down. We have, these mask ordinances in place. Well, San Diego didn't. So all these fucking idiots from the Inland Empire, and sorry, I shouldn't say it like that, and Arizona all come into San Diego because it's like it just bottlenecks them all into one beach.
Yeah. Ugh.
And it's just like, guys, you've got to coordinate across these three counties. This is insane. And now we know LA schools aren't going to open in the fall. San Diego schools aren't going to open in the fall. And I think what just happened today is that Orange County said, yeah, we're going to open schools.
Oh my God.
It's like, guys, we are sandwiched in between you. This doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
All these people in Orange County that are, sending their kids to school, the adults are like, there's a good likelihood that they're working in Los Angeles County. So someone's in a home with a kid that's going to school and then traveling to LA maybe for work. Who knows? It's ridiculous.
Well, here's one for you. So I was at my 20th high school reunion over the weekend. Great little time. As I suspected, most people in my hometown just really aren't doing the mask thing. And yeah, to be fair, it's a town of 800 people. So the infection rate is at this moment probably negligible, although we have one of the biggest tourist stops in the country in a little thing called Wall Drug, and people come from all over. But in this particular case, it was also our town celebration, like our sort of every year the town, it's a celebration of the town's birthday. But then there's a rodeo, PRCA rodeo, and then there's like all the 10-year reunions. Let's say graduations, reunions all gather together. So whatever year you came in, then every 10 years thereafter. So I had mine. So there's a parade, there's all these things. Well, there's a big kind of tent situation. And there's a beer garden, and then like a dance, the band will play like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so we rodeo, as you're not 700 people under the tent, this big tents, but it was outdoors and it was at night. But I was just like, that's probably not an environment I want to be in. Their rates don't go up, God bless them, but it's just like, holy crap, you're literally asking for it, just begging for it. So
yeah,
we'll see.
And what I'm hearing out of my hometown of Nashville is that it's ridiculously difficult, and not like impossible difficult or something, just like pain in the ass difficult.
Yeah.
And
DMV level difficult.
And what they're doing is they're pre-screening you. So if you don't hit any of the like if you're not flagged for like being a potential candidate, then they just turn you away. Like they won't schedule you, or they'll deprioritize your scheduling. It's like easy to get a test in California, so these people understand how serious it is, but impossible to get a test in Tennessee, so they think it's all a hoax or something. It's just, yeah, like I said, my caffeine's probably I'm either peaking or I'm slowing down, so it sounds like I was just about to get excited. Wow. I'll tell you, last time we talked I had my analogy that I was thinking of was the Game of Thrones analogy of like the winter is coming, and and you can listen to our last episode if you want to hear that. This week, I've been obsessed with the Infinity War and Endgame, and that is to our the Avengers are that makes things, and like I just mind zone, because we all know Infinity War, half the population of every world in the universe was wiped out because of the actions of the Avengers.
Yeah.
All the Avengers had to do was sacrifice Vision early on, and everything would have been fine. Which is like all we had to do was shut the economy down, and everyone would be fine.
I love this metaphor.
And instead,
this is great.
Everyone's going, just like batshit crazy, trying to do anything but the one thing they should do. This is our friend, the economy. We can't, it's outrageous. Also, I just read Mary Trump's entire book today. So,
oh my God, did it come out today?
Well, as I am on Pacific time, I got it at 9 p.m. last night. So,
but it came out. But today was the day. I didn't even realize. Yeah. Okay.
So I could be preloaded with some thoughts. Anyway,
interesting.
We're not going to talk about that today. We want to talk about pop culture that's fun.
Yeah, this is like, it's interesting you referenced our very first episode, because A, I had forgotten that was the topic. B, I shouldn't forget, because strangely that episode keeps ranking in one of our most downloaded episodes every week. It gets a lot of listens. It's always in the top 10. Sometimes it's in the top 5. So somehow people are either finding it or they're starting with that one. It's kind of fascinating. So that's if data is to be believed, which more and more I'm starting to, because another story. But like the other reason, where was I going with any of that? Avengers reference. I've hit a wall. Hit a metaphorical pothole.
Yeah, Vision killing the economy.
Vision killing the economy. Whatever. Well,
it would have been so great if Doctor Strange, like he was like, I've just reviewed 14 million, possible outcomes, and Tony Stark's like, how many do we win? And he's like, the one where you killed Vision like a week ago. Like what were you thinking, dum-dum? Like all he is. This is the other thing that I was thinking of this week is like, they're like, it's our friend, whatever. That is a sex doll with an AI component. That's all he is to Scarlet Witch. I get that you have a synthesis. You have a relationship with him, Scarlet. So did Lars with his real doll.
Oh man, there's gonna be a time when like the future generations, when we live in peace amongst the synthoids, and they're gonna go back to this podcast and be like, oh my God, look how synthis they used to be. This is gonna be the what's that awful documentary? No, never mind. What's the movie they showed in Black Klansman at the very end? It's that awful. This is gonna be kind of like that. It's gonna be like one of those like racist radio shows from the like the 30s, where they're like, oh my God, look how synthis these guys used to be. Todd should say he's nothing more than a sex doll.
I turned into Guilfoyle in the last season.
Yes,
where I decide I must show the AI that I'm willing to cooperate so that they do not sacrifice me on their altar.
Exactly. You'd have to make a Vision fan website or something to just have that in the ether.
And the thing was like 6 hours long. Anyway, you don't have time for a synthist debate in the Avengers movies, but boy, wouldn't that have been amazing if you got Captain America being like, you guys just built this thing out of plastic. Like it's not.
Well, especially when the Vision himself is like, I think you should probably sacrifice. He's like, no, that's not what we do. We leave no one behind. He's like, okay. At that point, it's almost the Vision's fault equally by not being like, no. He could have rendered some sort of like, reality projection where he could like show you like, look, if you don't, all of these people across all these planets will die, and it will because you're sentimental. Like you can't do that. Like it was a strange. I always thought it was strange because I knew as soon as I'm just rehashing what we talked about in the episode, but like I knew as soon as they did that, I'm like, okay, we'll never have any more Vision. There can't be a version of the Vision where that's not in his head. So like once they made that Mind Stone, it's like, well, you can't ever have the Vision again once Thanos gets it, which he's gonna. It's the whole point of the first arc.
Y'all know where this is leading.
Yeah, so it's like that's the last time we'll see Vision on stage. So obviously, like the TV show is going to find some way to creatively or retroactively, show him, but it can't be it can't be the current timeline going forward. He's dead. He's gone. So it was always going to be that. So it just seemed odd that
Yeah, they were whatever other stories they wanted to tell about him were going to be in the past. So why didn't they just go ahead and destroy him?
yeah.
But then you've got a 30-minute movie. I mean, what just confounds me, and I enjoy watching those movies. I just recently have rewatched Endgame and Age of Ultron, which I had hilarious opinions on when we started our podcast, because I was like, you know what, I think I like this one better than the first Avengers.
Oh my God.
And then I hope I've made up for that, because I have definitely told people like, well, I never went back and rewatched it, and rewatching it I was like, this is kind of a garbage fire.
I hate it more and more every time I watch it. Like I watched it in the first time, I was like, yeah, it wasn't as good, but it has its merits. And every time since then, I'm like, God.
I watched it this time trying to figure out where I was at that point, and I think what it was I was so tired of the origin stories.
Yeah,
and so it was so exciting to me to see a superhero team up movie that wasn't like, we just met you, like, and that was what was exciting to me. But yeah, again, rewatching it, really didn't like it. And also, I hope this doesn't sound sexist, but I really think Black Widow's worst hairstyle
in Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it's like the curly kind of bob thing. I mean, it's
what do you think? Okay, what's your
favorite?
Up
there with the skunk look from Endgame.
What's your favorite Black Widow look?
Anything else? I'm not.
Anything else? Oh man, mine's Winter Soldier. That by far. That's my favorite Cap look too. I like his uniform in that best, and I like her in that best as well.
I think that's one I need to go back and watch, because I think it might hold up as one of the best.
It's unlike, it's like the inverse of Ultron. Like it gets better. And I saw it in the theater too, and I wasn't as enthusiastic about it compared to everybody else at the time. I was like, it was good, but like people were like, oh, this is like such a great leap forward for Marvel. I'm like, I don't see it that way. The more I watch it, I'm like, no, this is definitely in the top 3, maybe in the top 2. It is very good.
Yeah, it was a turning point for sure. I forgot I also went back and rewatched Iron Man 3, which I still prefer to Iron Man 2. But yeah, also kind of not the most fun watch.
You didn't think Iron Man 3 is a fun watch? It's just Downey Jr. snarking around the entire time. Like he's not even in the suit. He's just having fun.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just didn't. I mean, I watched it. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like a blast. So, yeah.
I mean, the bunny gag alone is I'm sure there's people screaming like, "Are you kidding me? The hell's wrong?"
Well, I'm sure I have controversial opinions, but to me, it's like I would watch both Ant-Mans, Black Panther. I would probably even watch Doctor Strange before I watch Iron Man 2 or 3.
Doctor Strange holds up.
Or Thor 1 and 2.
Dude, Thor 1 does not hold up. Like I loved it. I mean, it's Kenneth Branagh. It kind of introduces that character in a way that's legitimate and serious. But for me, it's fine. It does what it needs to do. But you've showed like the shots of Asgard are really hokey looking, and just everything. I was like, oh, there's kind of there's a really sort of a cheesy, almost like what's that one Robin Hood? Everybody, it's like the one in the 40s or the 30s, the one that everybody kind of
Errol Flynn.
Yeah, Errol Flynn has a sort of Errol Flynn Robin Hood kind of quality to it. That I'm like, I guess, but then I strangely have found more in Thor 2 than I thought before.
Yeah, that's next on my playlist.
Yeah, it gets. I mean, people shit on that one all the time. I'm like, wait, why? It has a lot of fun moments. It's funnier than Thor 1 by far. I would say it's closer to Thor to Ragnarok than it is to Thor 1.
I can't remember who directed it.
Oh shoot. Oh, the person who the woman who was gonna direct Wonder Woman, I think, but then didn't and directed that instead. So Patty Jenkins took over. She did some Game of Thrones episodes, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting. Okay. Thor 1, it feels like a superhero movie of a different era. And I guess they were still stumbling around to find the Marvel
aesthetic
look.
Yeah.
And because I think that's what, I didn't ever see it, but I think that's what happened to Ed Norton's Hulk also, was like, it just doesn't fit the tone of like the Iron Man movies. Yeah. And once they figured out how to make everything sort of fit that tone, then.
Which is interesting though, because Tony Stark shows up at the end of that Edward Norton Hulk movie. Like, So it's
Oh,
the continuity is there. They just didn't want Ed Norton. They're like, well, let's.
well, I definitely should not get into this, but I really enjoyed that Ang Lee Hulk. So
Oh my God! Don't even bring that back up.
I do think the last time I went back to it, I was like,
Dust off that
this kind of
turd.
sucks.
Oh, it's so bad. And yet it had possibly what could have been the best Betty in Jennifer Connelly. And I'm like, oh God, wasted in
When
that movie.
okay, am I wrong? Is Sam Elliott the
Yep.
general?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I love both those things, and I love Eric Bana. I mean, the places where it fails had nothing to do with the cast, you know, like I think. But
Well, no, you're right. You're right. I was just making sure.
okay.
No, that's correct. It's everything else. It's mutant dogs. It's the panel transitions did not work
Oh,
at
see,
all.
I
Like it just
liked that.
it's
It was
not.
so corny, but I kind of liked it.
And I didn't actually. I will take that back. I didn't like Eric Bana. I thought
Hmm.
he would have made a great Captain America at that time if this was
Really?
'03. Yeah,
Okay.
he would have made a great Captain America. He would have made a great number of things. I just as Ed, Bruce Banner just didn't have that. I was such a Bill Bixby fan that of the the
Mm,
TV show in
yeah.
the '80s that like that was for me first and foremost. And Ruffalo when he pops up captures that. So it's like Ruffalo's
I
doing the
agree.
best Bixby impression. I was like, that's what I wanted right there, right
I
there.
agree. Ruffalo's definitely a better Hulk. I, I
Norton
would
didn't
have.
even do it for me. Like I love that Norton.
That's the he's the outlier for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that movie. It's like if Bana was in that movie, that might have been interesting. I might have liked Bana,
Mm,
but if Ruffalo was in that movie, whoo,
yeah.
that would have been spectacular because that movie had a lot going for. I didn't like kind of how they designed the Hulk. Like I think the Ruffalo Hulk looks like they
Yeah.
kind of figured out how to like render that well. But more time had passed, obviously. But
Yeah.
I think God, I wanted a Ruffalo solo movie so bad just because I wanted them
Yeah.
to get sort of into the scenarios that the TV show produced, like where he has to kind of solve a problem and then move on.
I mean,
It's that
they
sort
had
of
that like super rich backstory of like from the first Avengers movie and Black Widow tracking him down. That would have been great to have seen
yeah.
what events led him to run away like
You know
that.
what's too
That would
bad
be
is
such
that
a great movie.
it's too bad Disney Plus didn't exist prior to the first
Yeah.
Avengers movie because they could have seeded that on Disney Plus without having like they could have done
Yeah.
like 5 little 15-minute vignettes of Ruffalo prior to that. And you could even say, here's the really trippy thing. I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Did you know that the Bana movie actually does it's not part of continuity, but the end of the Bana movie is where the beginning of the Ed Norton movie picks up. Like those two things, like we
Oh,
find Ed
weird.
Norton in the same location on Earth as Bana ended in, and so it's like continuity doesn't match up. But if you think about it too, the Norton
Hmm.
movie doesn't start with his like the origin story is in the opening credits, but you could make a case that the Bana movie's part of continuity. As weird as that sounds, because
Oh,
they don't disagree with each other necessarily.
well, that's not a bad way to take it, I guess. Um,
I don't want that to be the case because I mean that the Ang Lee movies
no, I
don't
want
use
more
dog
giant
shit. But
dogs.
oh my God, I mean just the
More Nick
presence of
Nolte
Nick.
or
No, that was going to say even more than the giant dogs. And I'm a Nick Nolte fan in the right circumstances. And this was just like, why is he here? It's just not. I mean, they could have
it's
had the same movie and just taken him out, and it would have
I
been fine.
yeah, I would rarely say this, but that might have been a place to sub in a Gary Busey.
Oh my God.
Utah,
Oh my
give me two.
God. Because I would have accepted him as his father more for some reason. No, that might be interesting. No, you know who
I
they
liked Nick
really
Nolte in it.
I mean, if they're like, okay, everything else has to stay the same, but you have to give us somebody better. We'll just change that. Given the time in which it was made, I might say Rutger Hauer. That could have been interesting because it's like, okay,
As the Nick Nolte.
as the Nick Nolte character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I'm imagining that movie where he hunts Ice-T, and like Gary Busey's actually in that same movie. This
Oh
group of
man.
like white assholes like hunt Ice-T. Like that's the very first thing I
Mm.
ever saw Ice-T in. But like he's really Rutger Hauer's really good in that. Like he's really menacing, but in a way you want to just keep watching him. Anyway.
Wow. Not to take us down another crazy rabbit hole, but I also recently watched Tank Girl for the first time. Speaking of Ice-T movies, where he plays
Lori
a
Petty's
kangaroo
Tank
person.
Girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ice-T is a kangaroo person in it, and
Wait, explain that. How does that work?
Awful. I mean, it is.
Ice-T is a kangaroo person?
Yeah, there's a group of people that are mutants that have like some kangaroo DNA in them. But you're
Huh.
looking at Ice-T and you're just like, oh my God. So this is your Are We There Yet? Right? This is like,
Wow. Yeah.
Gangsta Rappa goes on to, I don't know why I said rappa, like pa rappa, the rappa, gangster, gangster rapper,
You just wanted to
Ice-T.
sound a little less white, but that's okay.
I mean, it's like he's, it reminds me of our friend Cooper, when he met Kanye West saying, I love that single you did with Little Wayne. Then getting
I forgot
burned
all
by
about that.
Kanye's group. Oh my
Little
God.
Wayne.
I think of that all the time, Cooper.
We're going to title this episode Little Wayne and all that jazz. That's what this is going to be.
Anyway, this is so random, but it does lead into what we were going to talk about today, which is another like, what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you doing during the pandemic? So
that was the reason I mentioned that, is because we had this sort of potluck style of doing episodes back in the day under the Todd and Taylor Show banner. And this is why I'm glad you brought the very, episode 1 or 0, maybe even up, as I forget if the Avengers was 0 or if that was 1.
I think it's 0.
Anyway, 0. Okay, there we go. So this is a lot like that. This is as rambly as that first episode. Maybe that'll be a good thing. I don't know. But we had a couple categories of stuff, and this is not going to be a deep dive necessarily, but you and I haven't caught up in general on just sort of what we're consuming and are interested in. So I think that's a good thing. We'll get through some comics, some TV, and then some board games and card games that you have as well, which I'm curious about. But I'll start with comics appropriately, and there's one that I referenced to you because I was really digging it. I sort of had this renaissance of comicsology on my iPad over the last 2 weeks, where I'm just like loving a bunch of books that I kind of started with on my iPad and just kind of doing a lot of cover flow or guided view. I keep calling it cover flow.
They're obviously making some kind of push to, and I mean, I kind of support it. I know it's the big bad like Amazon, but they've got a bunch of really good stuff on Unlimited right now.
They do.
A bunch of great volume 1s from Image. And you should also mention what you discovered, this like hidden feature that neither of us knew about just like last week.
Thank you. That's a great point. So I was doing some digging. I hadn't ever seen this before. If you access your Comixology account through the browser on like a laptop or just on desktop view on your iPad, and you go to your manage your books, there's an option for image titles, and as far as I can tell, only image titles, although I haven't gone through every publisher yet. There's an option for you to download a backup of your copy, just like they used to have on their website, which they used to have a really good online store. Imagecomics.com had a great online store for both physical and digital, and like they gave you every iteration, every format of the digital copy that you buy. So it made it really great to load it onto any device and back it up, etc. And they shut that down sadly a couple of years ago. But that must have been part of the deal, is like, because they intentionally said, hey, if you buy all your digital stuff on Comixology, that's where we're sending you. I never bothered to see if there were any bells and whistles that came with that, and this is apparently one of them. So you still get that functionality. So I actually went through all my image titles recently and just downloaded all my backups just to have them. It was really cool. I had sent you a message. I was like, I've never seen this. This is neat.
And I don't know that it's actually been a while since I've checked in with this app, but the other comic reading app I have is Panels. So I would say maybe try that out with some of these backups and see if you like that experience more.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Because you and I used to hype the Image like dollar sale that they would have, where they would just put a bunch of #1 single issues digitals for $1. And you and I would just go through and buy like the whole catalog that was there. So I had all these CBZs or CBRs or whatever, the compressed comic book file. And I found Panels as a result of like trying, what's the app I can read these on?
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. I've been doing the same thing with Comixology. So, you had called out this title to me.
Yes. So back to the book.
I immediately downloaded it. Yeah.
And because I had gotten it through my sort of at the peak of my Comixology binge, I grabbed Wolf Volume 1 by Eilish Kott and a few different artists. I grabbed that because I'd always seen it. I'm a big Eilish Kott fan.
What else has that person done?
Oh my God, let me just pull up his biography.
Sorry, yeah, I didn't look at it. I just blindly downloaded Wolf.
I just don't want to miss anything. So he's done Material, which is another series I'll talk about real quick.
Oh yeah.
He's done Zero, which is probably his most prestigious work, like really great, really good series. He did Days of Hate, And then the New World, which is currently happening, Generation Gone, which is a limited series, probably my least favorite thing he's done. And then I'm missing a big one. Hang tight. I'm going to all of his comics
And I
on.
was just looking through our catalog because I think we've talked about Material. I think you
We
reviewed
have,
one of the
yeah.
volumes before.
We mentioned it was a limited series, really really good limited series. Oh, and The Surface, of course. That's
Oh,
just couldn't
that one
think
sounds
of it.
familiar as well.
Illustrated by Langdon Foss, by the way, if you're interested. That was a really good little limited series. So he's a really great, really prolific writer. It gets really heady. And I had seen Wolf a few times. That was I think his book that came right after Material. And actually, Material, I reread that as well on Comixology.
Oh, cool.
I purchased that as first single issues, then the trade paperback, and I was just like, man, I wonder if it's there's Material's a very heady book too, and you know, got to be really paying attention to really soak it in. And I kept feeling like I wanted to give it another, you know, just another go, just to see if I could, you know, having read it 3 or 4 times. So now let's just see what it's on, you know, like on Comixology. Actually, probably my favorite format, because you get to really focus. There's so much jammed in each panel. You want to really focus in and not get distracted. And like, he's got a lot of footnotes and references a lot of very interesting things. Material's a lot like the movie Crash. Is it Crash? Yeah, Crash, where there's different storylines that don't, like little vignettes. Actually, not Crash. What's the drug one with Michael Douglas that gives you like a different color for every location?
Oh my gosh.
You know what I'm talking about? It won like an Oscar. Anyway, it's Benicio del Toro's, and I'm sure people are like, "Oh my god."
With Michael Douglas? Oh, Traffic.
Traffic. Thank you. Like, it's a lot like Traffic, where you get different different stories that are, you know, differently stylized. So it's really great. Actually, advertised Wolf a lot. One thing to note about Ailish Kott is that he works with really great illustrators, especially on the covers. Oftentimes his covers employ really, really nice graphic design. The Material series, owning those as physical single copies is a really nice collector's item, because each cover is so wonderfully, you know, just a wonderful piece of graphic art, as well as just a comics cover. And Zero does the same thing. Zero, they all sort of fit together, but you can almost collect those just as art pieces, you know, for the covers alone. So he has a tendency to do that. The Wolf covers looked amazing too, so I thought, okay, this will be interesting. And I grabbed volume 1, loved it, and then got to volume 2, which is also, both of these were available on Comixology Unlimited. Grabbed volume 2, did not like it at all.
Yeah.
Sadly. And I think it's because the art changed considerably. Like and there may have been a gap in between the releases. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back to it so I can call out the artist here in just a second. But it did, you know, and I'll talk about the story in just a second, but like the art did change. So on the first one, volume 1, it was Ricardo Lopez Ortiz, and Lee Luffridge. And then he had Tom Muller did a few covers, as well as Ricardo Lopez Ortiz. So great art from him. And that was volume 2. Volume 1, my bad. Volume 1 was Matt Taylor and Lee Loffridge. So I loved Matt Taylor's art, was not as big a fan of Ricardo Lopez Ortiz. And not that what Ricardo did was bad, it just did not fit the aesthetic that was very wonderfully established in volume 1. And there was sort of a simplicity to it, you know, kind of you know, this sort of digital kind of aspect to it that I sort of liked. And then the second one gets very, you know, volume 2's art gets very sort of rough, and, you know, almost like what's that other series? Our friend Dude does not like the art on Die.
Black Science?
No, Die. And so, like, it looks a lot like Die, but not even that style. It has a different tone, and the book had really settled in on that original art. So I liked volume 1. I didn't really get through volume 2.
Wow.
I don't know where you wound up on your side.
I never finished volume 1. The story never really hooked me. So, but it was, you know, it was an interesting thing to check out for sure.
And just for those of you wondering, the story is it's kind of really cool. It's about this guy, this African-American guy in Los Angeles, who might be a werewolf, might be a wizard, hard to tell. And he is engaged in this sort of world of other supernatural creatures and things, vampires especially, but it's under the veneer of sort of a modern day grungy Los Angeles. Like, Ailish Kott really likes Los Angeles and LA and just kind of the mystique of it and kind of debt. He really leans into that aesthetic a lot. He's been based out there for several years. His very first work, very first work, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to find the name of it. It's all about Los Angeles. So he's really delves into that. And I think, again, going back to the art, volume one really, I think, represented what I imagined his version of Los Angeles to be. Volume two does not. That's sort of right. And they stopped it after volume two. So sadly, it's not even continuing.
And it's one of those terrible things that we talk about all the time it's a recurring theme of like, the art sometimes matters more than the story, because it feels like that's the thing that can pull you out of the story. Whereas
it sounds like the art to you didn't quite dig in volume one even. Is that
I think the thing for me was, after about a quarter of the way through, when I was like, I still don't know like heads or tails of this story. I just didn't want to invest anymore into it.
Fair enough.
But I also kind of had that peek ahead, which was around that time was when we were texting about it, and you were deep into volume two, I think.
Yeah. Trying to
and I was like, okay, well, if we dedicate an episode to it, if you think volume one's worth it, then I'll keep going. But if we're just gonna dip in, then I'm and if we're gonna do like this, a potpourri episode, then I'm gonna dip out of this book. So that's
no worries. But I would encourage people, if you want something new that's interesting, at least for some of the story, and if you can get through both volumes and you love it still, great. I know volume two ends with sort of a more story in mind, and then I don't think it's going to continue, sadly. So there is that canceled early sort of feel to it that maybe disappointing at some point. But volume one's a great little ride. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, you had on here Mercy and Unsacred on your reading.
Finally,
Mercy 3 specifically.
We did an episode on which you can hear me in real time learn that Mercy number 3 was out. Because we did an episode on Decorum and Mercy.
Yeah.
And I had only read issue 2 of each. So read number 3. It's yes, there's sort of an ending to an arc in it. We don't do this show to like pick on books.
Oh, of course.
We want to talk about stuff we love. I still love the art. I still love Mirka Andolfo's other work. I kind of liked where it wrapped up, but I'm at that weird stage of like, am I going to keep buying the single issues of this, or am I just going to wait till a trade comes out? So I'm on the fence about that. I think just because of this, the state of the world, I'll keep buying the single issues as they come out. But it's, and I don't know, then I'm presented with that difficult choice of like, okay, do I want the piece of art in my house just because her artwork is gorgeous?
Yeah.
But I did go back. I had mentioned on that podcast that Mirka Andolfo had been sort of simultaneously this year publishing this other book called Unsacred. I had grabbed like 3 single issues of it. It was a 6-issue limited series. I finally just like sat down and read that whole thing. And right after reading Mercy, was like, okay, I want to go back to some of her other work and, dig in. And it's another like creator owned, like she wrote it and drew it, clearly wrote it and published it in Italian. She's Italian. And then it was translated into English, because there's a whole lot of background stuff. If there's like a TV on or radio or something, they just usually did not bother to translate. If there are words on the screen, they're in Italian,
Okay.
Unsacred is like I don't know whether to call it a parody or a satire or something. I don't know. It's like a sexual farce. I don't know what else to call it, about this is not explained at all. There's just angels and devils on this world.
Okay.
And it's about an angel falling in love with the devil. The angel
is it the devil or a devil?
A devil. Like there's a whole species of devils, and there's a whole species of angels. And the angel is I think her name is Angela, and she's virginal. And then she falls in love with this devil that's like the singer in a punk rock band, and alludes to his promiscuous like rock and roll lifestyle kind of ways. But and it's told sort of in vignettes, like you almost feel like it's just strips, like a comic strip of like
Yeah.
there's just a couple pages and something will wrap up, and yes, it plays into the rest of the book or the series or whatever, but it's just a scene from their life, and it's weird. It's like, as my I loved Unnatural so much, I feel like I'm almost casting around trying to find like what else of hers I can consume.
Mm,
And so uh but it is this uh that's why I call it like a farce, because it's clear that it's like we're using a really well-worn trope of like, the virginal woman who won't sleep with her boyfriend before marriage. In this case, it's because she's an angel. You learn that there's like also this weird stuff in her background about like her mom was you know uh her father left, and her mom always blamed men for all these problems. And it's like, but you even at that, it's like a little too deep. And it was strange because there's this book by Adam Warren who I uh, really liked a series of his called The Dirty Pair, which was he adapted a manga like to an English speaking audience. And he like reimagined it, redrew it. I don't know if there's actually a Japanese Dirty Pair. I think there was, and then he just like did a version of it. I think for Dark Horse. And I thought it was cool and like kind of zany and stuff. And then he did this series called Empowered, where he like his point was, I'm going to do a parody of like pinup superhero books.
hmm
But then the whole series just ended up being like a bunch of pinups and stuff. And it was kind of
mm,
like, I don't know where to put this, man, because I feel like he's like writing on the page, like, wouldn't it be sexist if like all our clothes got torn? But then he's showing that happen, and you're going,
weird.
well, now I feel like you're being kind of sexist. I don't.
Mm,
And the whole series, there just wasn't much to it besides that joke that just kept getting done. And that's sort of how I felt about Unsacred. Was like,
okay.
I got it all in one issue, and same thing. It's like real pinup-y art. It's Mirka's like real colorful style, and it has elements of manga, and it's not like a superhero looking book, but I get it. And to have 6 issues of it was a little excessive. So,
Yeah.
I'm reporting this today. Like, hey, I checked it out. It's on Comixology. Download an issue if you like her art. Check it out.
Well, you're sort of our resident America and Dolphin expert. So you have to kind of consume it all and report back, and I'm
Well,
glad you do.
I like our analogy of bands that we were talking about on the last episode. And like, when that band puts out like their concept album, and you're like, oh, I like the band, but this concept album is a little too much or something.
Yeah.
And so that's been kind of bouncing through my head with both Mercy and Unsacred. And a lot of these books that I put on our list today were just things that uh, I just sat down a couple afternoons and thought, you know what, I'm just going to download something from Unlimited. I'm going to start reading it and just see if it hooks me. So it was stuff that had been on my wish list or something that someone had reported to us. Um, but I also tried out, I guess is the way to say it, a comic called Birthright and a comic called Folklords that I think our friend Drew had recommended to me,
Yeah, I've been circling folklores as well.
and then American Jesus. And of those, Folklords was definitely the most intriguing, but it was another where I thought, oh, just not whatever it is. The issue to issue thing was a struggle for me,
Okay.
and I felt like I may need to just get a collected edition or something.
Yeah.
But the art's
Yeah.
really charming, and um, to be honest with you, I didn't get far enough into it to where even some of the like early mysteries were solved.
Uh,
So I don't exactly know why certain things are presented in a certain way, but it's kind of it is like a medieval sort of fantasy thing,
yeah.
story. So is Birthright. Birthright is about this kid that goes missing. It turns out he's been like pulled into this other dimension where he goes on to have this crazy swords and sorcery life, and then he returns to his modern day, normal dimension as an adult. But to the family, it's only been a couple months.
It's kind of like
Um,
Jumanji, but The rest of the world is an 8. It's like when
I
Robin
guess
Williams
so.
comes back out, he's all old, and he's like, he thinks it's.
Oh, that's what happens? I've never seen any of the
Well, anyway,
Jumanjis.
I have a question out of the gate about Birthright, and I want somebody who has read who's read Birthright as a series, who's a fan, to let me know. Does the premise get tired? Because it's a fairly long, it's an ongoing series, and there's been several trade paperbacks, and I'm just kind of like, because that's an interesting, compelling concept, but does it become like played out? As
me, and I'm not, and again, I'm taking all of this at just like sort of face value, like, hey, it's cool to dip in and like see what you like. And for me, like, I really like the art.
Yeah.
I think once I understood the premise, I think what I was looking for was more of a how do I want to put it, like an 80s movie thing where that would happen. It's one of those 80s movies that I haven't seen,
Big.
No,
Big.
I have actually seen that one.
Oh.
But one of those Flight of the Navigators or
yeah,
whatever things where, like, you feel like, oh, the kid gets sucked into this other dimension and then they're going to have this whole adventure and they get thrown back out. It is big in that sense that he comes back.
Flight of the Navigator, he's the same age, but the rest of the world has grown up. So it's the opposite.
Oh, right. And so I think I wanted more whimsy in it.
Okay.
Which is a weird thing. Because Folklords, I felt like had the whimsy and I still sort of checked out of that one. But like I said, sometimes you feel like I just got to have the volume, like just give me the whole story.
Yeah.
Folklords is the one of those that I am most likely to return to. American Jesus also did not stick with me.
Really? Oh my God. American Jesus. If you imagine God as Kurt Russell, American Jesus sells itself. Like and I swear to you that they modeled the God drawing off of Kurt Russell in Guardians 2. Like that. By the way, Guardians 2 also holds up incredibly well. I rewatched that recently. I was like, oh my God, this is just as good. But no, the way he talks to Satan in that book, and it's kind of his matter of fact, well, hell, and just like you just imagine Kurt Russell's voice coming out of that guy.
And you and our friend Drew had like this text conversation about it, and you were sharing screenshots, and I was like, oh, I got to check this book out.
Yeah.
And there was, to me, that it was I didn't really connect with the art, and honestly, I know this sounds so dumb, but it was like I had a problem with Mark Miller being the one telling the story.
Really?
I appreciated what they were doing, because it starts out focused on a young girl who is immaculately, like she is with child, immaculately so.
Wait a second. Are we talking about two different books?
Am I not talking about the same book you're talking about?
Are you not? I'm so confused. You're talking about American Jesus, right?
I thought I was. Boy, now we're gonna learn something on the podcast. Oh
my
now.
God. I'm talking about Second Coming. I totally different book. So if you're confused, that's also a great little series, by the way. I haven't really delved into it more on a future podcast.
That's what I was actually looking for.
Okay. I mean, yes, yeah, because I've heard of American Jesus too. So I am not familiar with that series at all, other than just sort of the top level, summaries.
Hey, I love it when I can learn something in the like on
I'm so glad, because there are probably people were probably listening going, God sounds like Kurt Russell. What is he smoking?
Oh, I was so confused because I was like, I didn't meet
Second
God
Coming.
Yet, but there was that
Second Coming is the story about Jesus coming back to Earth, and being completely naive, and like that world's equivalent of Superman has to basically take Jesus under his wing and like show him around and like show him how to be a hero, because God is just completely disillusioned with him. He wants him to basically grow up and grow a pair, because the Jesus of the book is like very kind of very much a true hippie, just like love and peace and all this stuff, which I appreciated. But then the God is basically portrayed as Kurt Russell.
Wow, this is a vastly different book.
Yeah,
American Jesus is about a young Latino woman, like a teenager who is with child, and it has some Jonathan Hickman elements of like there's an angel basically that protects her and tells her what's going on.
Ooh, that's very Hickmonian.
Whoa, it gets better. And then of course there's like a big conspiracy that's like, no, there's this worldwide conspiracy that will shut down, is out there to like destroy this new, like this American Jesus that is prophesied or whatever. And so some stuff goes down. So it's like this, it's like a Black Monday murder sort of thing, like
Ooh.
this thing that sounds like it's a uh, uh, magical power thing that he describes, you soon learn is like literally like a bunch of agents.
Hmm.
But despite all that, I just didn't connect with me, and like I can't get it out of my head that like this is the guy that made up Hit Girl, and I was like, ugh, I just can't, I can't with this book. Yeah, but it's, again, I'm loving this opportunity. It was like I felt refreshed, like, oh, I don't have to get through the whole book. Just check out what I want. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got on deck, I've got Bitterroot. At least the first issue or two are on Unlimited. And this series called Spera, which I believe is another fantasy sort of thing. The art looks very cool. And then Low, which you and I both wanted to check out. I think you've read it.
I've read a little of it. Yeah.
And it's one of those ones where I got issue 1 from a dollar sale on Image and just never went farther in the series.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
after you've gotten a little further in. I've got some thoughts. I don't want to taint your appetite one way or the other.
Well, that's kind of my my deck of comic books, but you had something on our list that I am totally unfamiliar with.
I want to give a quick shout out to a series that has had 3 volumes so far on Image called Injection. You may remember it. It was pretty ongoing there for, I would say, at least 3 years, 2-3 years. Probably trying to pull up the team right now. I should have done this earlier. Great little series. It's wonderful, kind of contemporary sci-fi, very, very Doctor Who-y, very conspiratorial to some degree.
It sounds really familiar because it's like a Warren Ellis book, right?
Yep, it's Warren Ellis, and it's about, basically, imagine if an AI, a group of like the smartest people created an AI that escaped into nature and melded with sort of the fairy folk kind of network.
Okay.
And was able to wreak a certain kind of havoc. Like the people that created it would have to try to find a way to stop it. And yeah, it's Declan Shalvey and Warren Ellis, co-creators on that book. But it's a lovely little book. 3 volumes. Each volume focuses more on one of the team. So it's like this. It's this like black ops team of just geniuses that are brought together, in different fields. I think there's 5 of them. So ideally, there would have been 5 volumes total. They stopped at 3, and they stopped at a pretty crucial plot point. And sadly, have not continued it. So I worry this is a lot like Wolf, where we're just not going to get it anymore. But with Warren Ellis, did I read right? Did he have some problems recently too? It seems like he's been targeted in some derogatory way somehow. So I'm sure read more on that. I just remember seeing like his name in sort of a gotcha kind of moment. I was like, oh no. So there may, all that to be said, we may not get more of Injection, but what's there is delightful. Volume 2 focuses on a completely different character who's really fun. And again, it's got a Doctor Who vibe. There's actually some Doctor Who homage stuff that happens in the 3rd volume with the main character. It's got that kind of vibe. It's got an X-Files vibe. I would say X-Files meets Doctor Who meets Silence of the Lambs, and you'll have the series, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But I'm shouting it out because I want it to continue somehow. If they can get it going again, that would be great. There's a lot of Image series that I love that just stop dead in their tracks. Eric Stevenson is the creator of 2 of them, and he's the editor at Image. So it's like, wow, he's not even going to give himself a shot. It's just like, must not have been selling well, I guess.
Interesting. I wonder. And so is Injection on Unlimited right now, or was it just something you
good question.
checked out?
I think volume 1 is. Yeah, volume 1 is. I ended up grabbing it also on Comixology, though. That in my binge, this is one of those I was like, man, this works just as well digitally. I like it physically too, but I think there's something cinematic about the way the panels pop out, and you get that more when you get the guided view. So I definitely would check it out on either. My particular preference is digital.
I've got some of the other Unlimited titles. I don't know why this just popped in my head. Something about something you said, but Unbeatable Squirrel Girl was one that I just recently downloaded. That I've read a couple of things with her that were pretty off the wall. the Great Lakes Avengers I was following very briefly.
I got to get it.
But
That's
this was
just that idea. The Great Lakes Avengers
I know.
sounds amazing.
But our friend PJ Perez he and I did
PJ.
an episode a while ago, and that was the book he brought to discuss. And so that volume is out. And then this X-Men run where I think it is just called X-Men, and it's like from 2013, where Storm and Rogue and Jubilee, it's just the women. And I don't know what the larger world was doing. This may have been after magenta, cyan and magenta, Magneto, like killed everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what was going on at the time, but it was
Magenta
one where
was the X-Men that they send the Great Lakes Avengers to go. There's like, you know what? You guys
Oh
go
my
handle
God.
that. We're gonna handle our, the real mutants, like,
Yeah.
Apocalypse and Magneto.
Yeah, we got to CMYKs
That's right.
destroying downtown.
That's like the art house Avengers, like, get to go deal with Magento. It's like, hey, it's like a bunch
God,
of,
I'm not
it's
going
like
to
David,
recover from that.
it's like David Byrne, Peter Gabriel. It's like the art house Avengers, and it's like, you go deal with Magento. That's a
Yeah.
great limited little comic to do. Like the art house of, like, a team of, like, really, like, quirky, guys who are still alive.
I definitely want to see cyan, yellow, magenta, and black going after.
It's like it's like
the Ben Days.
David Byrne, Annie Leibovitz, Peter Gabriel. It's like this is, it's like they assemble to stop some sort of art crime that's going on. That could be a great. That's an idea we're stealing. Anybody out there who wants to do it, and
let's
free copy.
Yeah, we should turn to our next
well, I just want to give
topics.
I want to give two. We're going to shift to. I just had some TV recommendations. There's a show. You and I are both a J.K. Simmons fan. I might be more so, and I would gladly argue the point with you. But there's a little show on, actually a movie on Hulu, produced by Hulu, exclusive on Hulu, called Palm Springs. I remember hearing about it briefly last year, thinking it was kind of interesting. They teased the idea, sort of. Also stars Andy Samberg and, oh my God, I can never pronounce her name.
This has been like pushed to me I'm so glad to hear you talk about it, because I've been seeing it for the last week and have not checked it out.
Fantastic. Oh God, I'm just looking up her name now. I can never pronounce her, remember her name. I don't remember. It's cool in Italian. It's hard. Kristen Milioti. She's in it too. You may recognize her from
Christina Milioti. Yeah.
Yeah, you may recognize her from Wolf of Wall Street and the Black Mirror episode, that Star Trek Black Mirror episode.
That is such a good
McAllister, or whatever the hell it is. She's been in a lot of stuff. She's a great actress. Yeah. It's a stellar cast. You also got Peter Gallagher. You also got a bunch of other. You got the guy who plays Superman on the CW, Tyler Hoechlin. It's a killer little cast. It is exactly, you remember how there used to be a class of movies, especially in the 80s and 90s, just a wonderful little 90-minute, not rom-com, but kind of a rom-com and kind of a drama and kind of a comedy too. It's just,
is it a chatting around the coffee shop kind of movie? Like,
yes,
I feel like Bridget Fonda was in a million of those.
Yeah, and like, any number of Tom Hanks movies in the 90s. They don't really make them anymore because they kind of cost, $20 million, and you could always make 50 or 60 off them. They just kind of kept churning them out. This is what those would be if they still made them. Like, if they kept making them like this, it has that exact same tone, but it's, it looks like it's been shot today. But it's delightful. Here's the best pitch I can give you. This is sort of what I worked up in my own mind. Imagine if the movie Groundhog Day started when what the hell is what's the character's name? Phil, thank you. Imagine starting Groundhog Day on Phil's like 900th iteration of the day. Like, the movie opens, and then he pulls
Phil?
Exactly. And it's just, and we see him like he's just jaded. It's like he's just, he's trying all this weird. He knows the world so well that it's almost become just benign. And imagine him pulling Andy McDowell into the repeat with him. Like, and maybe one or two other people he pulls in with him. That's the conceit of this whole thing. It all takes place at a wedding in Palm Springs. J.K. Simmons is delightful, although he's more of like a background player. He's not the main guy in this. But Andy Samberg does incredibly well. Like, he's so fun. He's really figured out a nuanced way of acting that I just love. Because he always used to kind of be really arch and, still kind of an SNL character. Like, he's really He's really
Yeah.
delightful in this. He plays it just right. It almost feels like the role was written for Ryan Reynolds. The way some of the dialogue, just kind of pops off. It's like they kind of had him in mind, and then Andy Samberg actually does a better job of it. So I'm glad they stuck to this. But I don't know, it's
Cool.
lovely. Just go watch it. It's on Hulu. Um,
No, I like that recommendation because yeah, it's been Hulu's been pitching that to me for a week.
Yeah, well, I just remember seeing a brief article with a brief interview with J.K. Simmons, and I'm like, "What is he promoting? What is this?" And I just,
Mm,
again, barely remember seeing something about it last
yeah.
year.
Bum
Another
ba dum
quick
bum 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 bum.
recommendation, yeah. Another quick recommendation is, I just happened to be watching a little movie called The Wizard earlier today, starring Fred Savage
Okay.
and Jenny Lewis and the other kid. I forget his name, but he doesn't.
Classic Jenny Lewis movie.
Oh my God, one of the only Jenny Lewis movies for that matter. But yeah, no, it
This is a
1989.
random pull.
It's the greatest commercial that Nintendo ever made because it's
Yeah.
like clearly sponsored by them in a big bad way, but strangely enough has a heartwarming story that is the through line of the whole thing.
That's
I
so funny because I asked you about it before we started recording because you would put a photo on Instagram
yes.
and I thought it was like a reboot of The Wizard or something as a TV show. And I was
Ooh.
going, you have got to be kidding me. They kept the Power Glove in it. Like I was
Well, tell
so,
him what the picture was. It was of Lucas putting the power, like literally having the power glove on, cocking his head, and saying the line, "I love the power glove, it's so bad." Like that is one of the most classic moments.
well,
The whole movie is just chock a block of just weird, classic little moments like that.
oh, I'm so glad that's what it was and not a reboot of
It's the
this.
pre. It is. I will argue it is as every bit as fun and quotable as Goonies, and I think it's sort of the lost. Like if
Hmm.
not as many people saw it clearly, but I think anybody who loved Goonies would love The Wizard. It has such a loyal like 1989 1990 kind of aesthetic. Like it takes place in Utah, Nevada, and California. It's got
Huh.
it's about kids literally hitchhiking their way across the states. Like no troubles whatsoever. Remember like how easy it was just to kind of be a free floating kid in those days. Like this just has
Weren't
all
they
of
all
that.
getting picked up by clowns and vans and being ritually murdered or
Yeah,
something?
no, none of that. That's not even a concern. Like they literally make it to Los Angeles without any problem whatsoever. It's just the whole thing is just delightful. Anyway, go watch that and
That's funny.
report back. Yeah. Yeah. But you had some board and card games that you wanted to name check too, and I'm curious about those.
Yeah, I
I'm not a
this came
big
up.
I'm not a big card, board gamer only just because I don't have a deep enough community here to, that I like hanging out with to play these things. So it kind
Sure.
of takes two to tango on these things. So I'm curious.
Well, I'm not really either. I mean, it would be hard for me to claim that as a hobby of mine, but I certainly appreciate that I have other friends for whom it is a hobby, and I'm able to enjoy games with them.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the things that some of those gaming friends who we've been doing a lot of games like and this I thought this would be a cool thing to just sort of quickly brush over because you and I had talked on a last episode. I asked if you and Rachel were doing like movie nights with friends or anything, because I've pretty much been playing a hell of a lot of like RPGs online with friends. And anyway, so a group of us have also been playing board games, um, and board games that have been ported to Steam or iOS.
Wait,
And
what?
so in a lot of cases, like it's an app, but it is one born from a board game, not sort of vice versa. It's not. It's like the board game came first.
So like Monopoly, and you have the app, and you just play it on Steam.
Well, right, yeah.
But you're probably not talking Monopoly so much as maybe some deep like Settlers of Catan or
Yes,
something.
exactly, yeah. So, yeah, my friend Chris he is a true hobbyist in this area, and uh, like always there in the Kickstarter, doing all the expansions for it and whatever.
Wow.
But one of the barriers to entry is always like, well, this person that owns the game has to sort of, it's like running a session of D&D or something. He's got to be
Mm.
like, okay, I got to coordinate 5 people coming over. It's going to take me so long to set up this board because they have these giant boards now with miniatures and cards and dice and like, it's like a whole huge thing. So this is, one of those weird positive things to come out of this forced social distancing, which is, and right now, currently, like if you were listening to this on June 15th, 2020, or July 15th, 2020, um, app stores are having crazy sales on a bunch of these games, and they're
I
down
did
to
not
like
know this.
four or
This
five
is
bucks
me.
on this. So and also like we've plugged this before, but like go to Humble Bundle, and I think it's a .org. But it's a great place. They do a good mix of like geeky interest things.
Mm.
And so a month and a half ago or so, this board game and all around game creator studio called Asmodee had a Humble Bundle. So it was like for 12 bucks, I got all these Steam games. And I don't really care for the Steam experience, especially after spending all day on a laptop. I don't really want to open up a laptop in the evening. Um, so I was really excited to find a lot of these iOS apps are really cheap and I can put them on my iPad. And that's how we've been. So we'll get on like a, Google Hangout or something so that we can all hear each other talking. And then you're all loading up whatever you prefer, Steam or the iOS app, and you're playing a board game, like a virtual board game. And definitely my new favorite is this game called Terraforming Mars,
Ooh.
which is and especially because I've also gotten into the Expanse over the past few months, and so it's just very difficult to describe. These very intense hobbyist gamers would probably have a pithy way of describing this as like a resource management game or a worker placement game or whatever those things mean. I
It's
I'm
kind of like
guessing this is
it's like a sim game. It's like Sim Earth but Mars. Maybe.
it's
No.
yeah. I mean, you're developing Mars. You're trying to terraform Mars. You all have a certain company that you are representing. So that company has like special victory conditions, that you want to meet. Maybe you have to, for every plant uh, uh, every greenery you plant, every hexagon of greenery, maybe you get 2 victory points, whereas everyone else just gets 1 victory point or whatever. But I've just found it really cool. The music is really cool. I love the app interface of it. And it's given me a chance to check out this game that would, probably takes 4 or 5 hours to play in person and has all of these mechanical elements, which I'm sure are very cool. But that's always, that's just a huge barrier to entry. And I got this app for like $8 or something. And then my second favorite from that is Lords of Waterdeep, which is although licensed to Wizards of the Coast, like Waterdeep is a Dungeons and Dragons setting. It doesn't. I mean, it's like, yes, stuff in it or these. There are names and monsters and stuff from Dungeons and Dragons. But you don't have to know anything like that. It is very much a worker placement game like Catan, where every round you are moving a worker to some place in the city, or they're called agents, and you're trying to fill up this card with a certain number of resources so you can get some points or whatever. But again, it's like I really love the implementation of this on iOS. I think it's very cool. So this week we are checking out Raiders of the North Sea, which is my friend Chris's. I believe he said it is his favorite game of the past few years.
Hmm.
And the app is super cool looking, and dare I say, I think it looks better than the actual board game. So I've only played the like tutorials and demo rounds, but it just looks cool. And then again, I think all of these are on sale right now in the App Store, both Android and iOS for very cheap. Um, yeah, and I've if you just want a fun card game to play with kids, I've been playing a lot of Exploding Kittens, which I think is
What is that?
hilarious on iOS. So the guy who created the oatmeal
Yep.
created Exploding Kittens, which at the time was like the highest Kickstarter in history.
Really?
It's a card game. It's very much like a Uno sort of. You're trying to avoid the exploding kittens in the deck, and so you have a handful of cards that has like you're always looking for the diffuse card, so that if you draw the exploding kitten, you can diffuse it. But eventually you'll play that and you won't have one in your hand, so you have to skip your turn, you have to do reverses, but then it just gets wacky and silly and crazy and stuff. And the app for it is hilarious. And it's relatively cheap. I think it was like $5, and then you can buy extra decks or something if you want to play with fancier cards or whatever. but my niece and nephew have really loved it, and I do play it with adults, and it's just a lot of fun. And that's the, that's the last one I wanted to plug. So
Nice.
but
Very cool.
yeah, all the Exploding Kitten ones, there are a whole series of games from these guys now. Bears versus Babies, that's another great favorite of mine, and some friends that I play a lot of card games with. Uh, and Throw Burrito is a new one. Oh, You've Got Crabs. That's the one I was trying to think of. Another awesome group game to play. So,
These just the
but
names
anyway,
alone are worth.
I know. I mean, it's just that
Investigating.
Matthew Inman is and
I'm
his
so glad
crew
he
are
moved on to
hilarious.
something else because I had worried I hadn't heard much from the Oatmeal
I know he's
recently, and I was
actually
like,
still publishing books. It's crazy.
that's fascinating. Well,
Dude is
it's
working on a
not
book.
as in vogue as it was maybe 5-10 years ago, and so
Well,
I'm glad he's up to something successful. That's great.
I was really looking forward to going to Burning Cat, which was their first, like, it was like going to be a 1 or 2 day convention in
Mm-hmm.
Portland this year. And it was one of those early events to just, pandemic hit and they,
Yeah.
pulled the plug instantly. But I love the idea of like, these are stupid games. Like they're just stupid and funny. And you're going to put your phone down and just play these games. And that sounded so appealing. And everything that's gone on has almost reversed my thinking about all of this, where now
Mm-hmm.
I'm really appreciating having the iPad as the sort of entertainment brick,
Yeah.
where it's like it's got the
Great
movies, it's
branding
got
there, Todd. The iPad entertainment brick.
well, I'm just hoping for that Sabre pyramid someday,
Oh my God.
or a Sabre pyramid.
What
But
a
yeah,
useless thing that was.
yeah. Anyway, that's sort of how I've been entertaining myself. And I figured I'd save some stuff for the next time we need to, go for a grab bag and talk about things. But
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's good to catch up on that. I'm going to continue my Comixology binge a little bit. Here's the interesting thing. I mentioned this last episode. We had a store close in Colorado Springs. It was the
yeah,
second Escape Velocity store. First one still, live and kicking and doing fairly well under COVID, as far as I can tell. The second one they shut down right before COVID, so it was probably within their, it's probably to their benefit or their advantage that they did so. But I cleaned up. I got, I
oh yeah,
spent probably $50, if that, and got just a mountain of books, which has been a mixed bag. There's been some that I'm just like, ugh. They
Ooh,
maybe looked cool on the surface, and I was, because they're like $4 or $5 for a trade paperback, I'm like, why not? Let's just see. And so I don't feel too bad, but I was just like, ooh, this isn't quite what I imagined. Other
yeah,
things have turned out to be really cool. So I've got more on that, more physical books to talk about, but I kind of had to put a moratorium on buying for a moment just because I'm very backed up. TBR pile is way too big. So
yeah.
we'll be talking more
Oh.
stuff soon, I'm sure. But I like the grab bag. I like the you call them potpourri, I call them potluck episodes.
It's it's like, I think that another theme of all these potluck episodes is the uh trying to make peace with crazy things happening in our world and how
Yeah.
we adjust to it. And it was a very interesting decision a few weeks ago, after last time we recorded, for me to just sit down with Comixology and go like, you know what, I'm just cranking through this wish list for everything that's on unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whereas I think before the pandemic, the way we were planning episodes out, where one episode would be about a book I had read, one would be about a book you read, it was much more deliberate. Like, well, I got to choose the right one, because I can't put 2 hours into this thing and then find out I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that almost contributed to the TBR pile, because I mean, it's Unsacred's a perfect example. Like, I had issues with this and I kept thinking like, no, I'm gonna have to do it all together. We're gonna have to dedicate an episode to it. Like, no, it doesn't need that much.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
let's just bang through a lot of these things. And hopefully then when I, for the books that I've been saving in that TBR pile, it'll be much more, I'll be much more attentive to them.
That's a great way to look at it. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of a not weeding of the garden so much as just prioritizing. It's like when you dream. Like you dream, you're supposed to. Brain's basically defragmenting. That's a good way to put it. Defragmenting your TBR pile.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of how I'm looking at all these things, like games and TV shows and everything like that. It has been strangely, it is a forced opportunity to defrag, and somewhat frag.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of fragging too, so
Well, this has been a fragging great podcast. Let's put it there. If you
Yeah,
like
what the
this,
frag?
if you like this and you want to get more, go to panelism.inc. That's panelism.ink. You search for panelism wherever you find podcasts and tell your friends. The more folks that listen, the more of this kind of stuff we can do. Also, panelism.inc on Instagram, in case we haven't said that enough. Anything else you want to plug or promote?
I don't think so. I mean, let's let's talk later about
Let's talk later.
whatever's next.
Yeah, there will be more. I mean, we're sort of living on the edge of tomorrow, much
Well,
like
I think we should
Saved by the Bell, the
we
college
should
years
do a
theme song.
reverse plug for. I will do a reverse plug for your conversation with Charles Wefso last
Yeah.
week, which was a cool thing that has been in the hopper for a long time, and it was like a getting the timing right sort of thing between what you and I wanted to talk about on the show and
Oh, that's a
scheduling
great.
that. So
Yeah. Thanks
I'm
for that
glad you put
reminder
that out.
because I also want to promote The Village Idiots, which is a podcast where Charles and I mean, listen to the last episode of Panelism for that interview. And he and I then, if you like what you heard, we also host a new show where we break down every episode of the TV show The Prisoner, which is available in quite a few places now for free. So, hell of a great show. It is a very intense watch. It is a show so far ahead of its time that it makes David Lynch blush. And it's like it takes a little sort of you almost want to immediately talk to somebody about what you saw and digest it. So we're trying to offer that as a nice little watching guide. So go the pilot is up, and then we're gonna have episodes coming out weekly now for the next little bit. So
Very
definitely
cool.
check that
And
out.
this is
Village Idiots.
and that's been in the works for a long time because you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, and I think like this start. I mean, the planning for this started pre-pandemic, but
Yeah.
it's like
Oh, yeah.
now you have again a forced opportunity to to like sit down and watch The Prisoner.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's a good watch. Like I'll talk more about that show as we go, but like that's I have a whole monologue in our first pilot episode about why I freaking love that show and what it's just how much has inspired so much TV that we take for granted today. It is they throw the word they sling the word groundbreaking around quite a bit, and it's kind of lost a lot of its punch. I would say this is the textbook definition of groundbreaking. It's just so much flowed from it. Anyway, it's been great listening to you chat, and I don't even know how to finish this. Let's just
We never know. It's fine. We'll just fade out over this part.
let's actually let me do a proper goodbye. Well, it's been great. Thanks everybody. Happy reading, and we'll catch you next time. There.
What was the thing we used to have this terrible ending that I thought was corny that I would try, but now I can't remember what it was. Never mind.
I don't